Konnichiwa. That means hello in Japanese. Big things come in little packages. Today I will tell you about this country's unique culture. I have worked for a Japanese country for the last 14 and a half years, and I have experienced some of these cultures. First, I will tell you a little bit about Japan. Second, I will tell you about some of my trips to Japan. And finally, I will tell you some about the unique cultures in Japan. First, let's begin with a little bit about Japan. Japan is comprised of thousands of islands, with us recognizing 4 major islands. These islands include Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Shikoku. These islands are located in East Asia, just east of South Korea. According to Land and Climate section of Japan in the Culturegram World Edition, it indicates that Japan is 146,000 square miles in area. This is similar to the U.S. state of Montana. Just like the United States, Japan experiences all 4 seasons. Most northern islands have the same cold area as the U.S. does, while the southern sections experience the warmer climate. In Japan, there is approximately 127 million people living there. Out of those people, 98.5% are Japanese, 0.5 are Korean, 0.4 are Chinese, and 0.6 are others. Out of the 98.5% Japanese, there is a minority group called the Ainu. These people live in Hokkaido. In the book, in the section of Ainu of the World Mark Encyclopedia of Cultures and Daylight Life, Volume 3, Section 2, Timothy Gall and Janine Hobby indicate that over 400 years ago, the Ainus were the dominant people in the island of Hokkaido. Through the years, they have become the minority, and nowadays they're still located in the same island, and they speak 2 different languages, which is the Japanese language and the Ainu language. So now, let's switch our focus to the trips to Japan. One of the trips that were done to Japan were for 2 different reasons. One was for a reward trip, while the other one was for training. The top performers in our company were rewarded to an all-expense paid trip to Japan. While in Japan, we visited both Tokyo and Kyoto. During our trip, we toured several museums as well as visiting temples, and were able to provide some of the basic cultures and basic rituals that they were doing at these temples. On our training trips, we went and visited the main office in Tokyo. One of the things that I remember the most about this visit was that during our lunchtime, everybody got to go to lunch at the same time. We didn't take shifts or anything. Everybody went to lunch at the same time. If somebody finished lunch early, they would go back to their desk, put their head down the desk, and take a nap up until it was time to return to work. The working area was an open area. There was no walls that separated employees or departments. The head of each department would sit at the end of a row of desks that indicated that group belonged to his team. Now, let me tell you about some of the unique cultures in Japan. I will tell you in 3 general cultures that constitute of general attitudes, gestures, and eating. In the general attitudes section of Japan in Culturegram's World Edition, it pointed out that the Japanese society is group-oriented. The Japanese are very loyal people, especially to the groups that they belong to. In return, companies are loyal to these employees by providing lifetime employment due to the loyalty to the company. In the gesture section of the Culturegram's World Edition, it talked about some of the gestures that are impolite. Yawning in public is impolite. When people sit down, they're supposed to sit down with both their feet flat on the ground. Crossing of the knees and crossing of the ankles is acceptable, but an ankle over a knee is not acceptable. In the eating section of Japan Culturegram's World Edition, they talked about some different eating scenarios. Eating and walking is considered bad manners. Most people will stand at the stands and eat standing up before walking to their current destination. While eating out of a bowl, people hold the bowl up against their chest. Drinking out of a bowl and slurping out of the bowl is perfectly acceptable. Instead of using spoons and forks, they utilize chopsticks to eat. In conclusion, Japan has a unique culture that differentiates them from others. First, I told you a little bit about Japan. Second, I told you about my trips to Japan. And finally, I told you about some different cultures in Japan. Even though Japan is a relative small country, it is big in culture. Arigato.
Aprenda, güey.